All right, everyone. So today we are not back, but actually here for the first time for a Grand Cross Global video, and I wanted to share with you guys 5 major mistakes that a lot of newer players are making when it comes to gearing out their characters. These are mistakes that are going to set you back a lot of resources, so it's very important to make sure not to do these things. And let's start off with number 1, and this is a mistake that I actually made quite a bit in the first couple of days of the game's launch, and that is enhancing SSR gear with bad base rolls. You are definitely not going to want to do this, and it is going to set you back either a lot of resources or a lot of gems later on in order to fix this mistake. So let me explain a little bit about this. So when it comes to gear, when you actually acquire gear, it's going to have a random roll on it for its actual base stat. So we've got a 499 attack roll. Now, if you go to change stats, you can actually see the range of rolls that you can get on gear. So these onslaught bracelets can roll anywhere from 390 to 520 attack. Now, whenever you pick up a new copy, it's going to come with a random roll on it. Just as if you were to re-roll it yourself, it's going to come with a random roll. Now, the problem is if you end up taking a bad version, let's just say you started to enhance these ones right here, which have a 395 base roll, which is very close to the minimum roll that these can have, and then you put a lot of resources into this, you start awakening it, and you realize that it had a really bad base roll. Now you're in a bit of a problem because in order to re-roll the actual preliminary flat roll on SSR gear and also on SR gear, it's going to cost gems. So now you have to use a very valuable currency in order to re-roll, whereas you could have just farmed copies of it in order to get one to start off with a high base roll and never run into that problem to begin with. So definitely don't make this mistake. I've done it. I know I have a few characters where unfortunately I took a few pieces of SSR gear with bad rolls and realized that there's no way in the future that I'm going to be using that gear. There's no way I'm going to spend gems to re-roll it either, so I just decided to start over. All right, now number 2 on the list. Number 2 is going to be not focusing on your left gear more so than your right gear. Now, this is definitely maybe a little bit confusing if you're very new, and I want to explain because this is actually a very important one and something that I even didn't know when I first started out. It took me a little while to understand this. However, when you take a look at the gear on a character, you're going to notice that there are 6 pieces of gear. You've got your 3 on the left, and then you've got your 3 on the right. Now, I don't have 3 SSRs on the left and 3 Rs on the right as a coincidence. Obviously, this character is still much in progress when it comes to gearing, but this is actually something that is not a bad idea to do, and there's a reason behind this, and that's because the gear on the left is actually going to have a higher base roll potential than the gear on the right. So you're always going to have 2 pieces of gear that have attack, 2 pieces of gear that have defense, and then 2 pieces of gear that have HP. However, the version on the left is going to roll higher than the version on the right, and they both consume the same amount of resources in order to enhance and upgrade. So you're going to want to focus on the one that just gives you a higher return overall, and that's going to be your gear on the left. So I have this image to show you guys as well, just so you can get a little bit of a better understanding of it. But you can see here we've got the 6 pieces of gear. We've got the 3 different stats, attack, defense, and HP. And you can see that bracers and rings both give attack. However, for a common bracer, it has a potential to go up to 120 attack, whereas a common ring only has the potential to go up to 80 attack. So this is definitely something you're going to want to be mindful of. Whichever method that you guys decide to go about, whatever gearing strategy, I know there's a lot of different people out there right now talking about what the best method to gear up is. Maybe I'll introduce my own a little bit later on, but whatever method you do decide to go with, you're still going to want to understand that the left gear has higher potential than the right gear. So that's number 2. All right, moving on to number 3, rerolling SSR gear flat stats with gems. So this is going back to that whole idea of not investing a lot into bad SSR gear. This is a really easy mistake to fall into because as you actually complete the story and go through the missions, the game's going to throw a decent amount of SSR gear at you, but there's a good chance that it's going to be pretty bad and not really worth investing in. So if you do stumble upon a piece of gear that does not have a high attack roll, like these onslaught bracelets, they got a bad attack roll, what do? Do you just, are you stuck with the bad piece of gear? Should you work on it at all? Well, the answer is no to both of those. You're not stuck with the bad piece of gear, but also no, you should not end up working on this one. There's plenty of different ways to get other pieces of gear, and if you actually go and you farm through hard free quests, you'll see that hard free quests do indeed have a chance to give you SSR gear. And it's going to be a lot easier for you to actually go through and farm quests on hard mode to get SSR gear, and then see if you got a good roll on that, rather than spending the gems to reroll the gear that you've already gotten. Going through and spending a little bit of stamina, which, by the way, right now at the time of me making this video, we have a half stamina event, so it's even cheaper, a lot better of a resource to use than precious gems that you can use for other things like summons. So absolutely don't get into the habit of spending gems on things that you can do in-game much more efficiently without having to use gems. All right, so that's going to be number 3 on the list right there. Now moving on to number 4. This is a really, really big one, and I want to show you guys some gear that I have on a character as an example, but not focusing on Awakening and not re-rolling your Awaken stats to percentage attack, defense, and HP. Now, Awakening is very, very important for gear. It's going to unlock a ton of stats for your characters. It's going to massively boost your combat class, and it's very, very important that you understand what Awakening is, as well as start awakening the gear on the characters that you do have. Now, out of the characters that I have right now, the highest combat class character that I am currently using has 22,795, and surprisingly, when you guys take a look at his gear, you'll see it is all common gear. That's right, my best geared character is actually an all common gear. And the reason is because when you get gear up to +5, you can awaken it and use those blue awakening enhancement materials. And what that's going to do is it's going to add a substat roll. Now, the substat rolls are very important because unlike the main stat roll or the preliminary roll on a piece of gear, the substats are percentage based, which means the more stats that you have on your character overall, the more you're going to benefit from these awakened rolls right here. So you're definitely going to want to awaken your gear. Now, you know, of course, SSR gear is going to take a lot of resources to awaken right off the bat. This is why you might want to focus on common, uncommon, or rare gear on the right side, and then work on your left side as SSR gear, because those are probably going to be the ones that you're going to keep for a while because they have those higher stats. The lower rarities are going to use the lower star awakening materials that are going to cost less resources and going to be easier to max awaken. However, the actual percentage-based stats, whether it's a common piece of gear or whether it's an SSR, they're always going to be the same ranges. So, for example, the attack is going to be 1 through 3% attack, whether it's a common piece of gear or whether it's an SSR piece of gear. So you can actually get the same amount of percentage attack on 5-star common awakened gear than 5-star SSR Awaken. The difference between those two is the flat stat. And of course, an SSR 5-star Awakened gear is going to have way, way higher attack than this 5-star Awakened common ring. But that's something that you can work on in the long term. Getting these percentage-based stats is a really big deal. And when you do, there's a good chance that it's not going to be attack right away. You've got 4 different options here: attack, pierce, crit damage, and crit chance. And if you do end up getting one of the ones that is not attack, in fact, I don't mind re-rolling this one right here, so I'll just do this as an example to show you guys. I might get attack again if I'm really lucky, but looks like I didn't. So we got crit chance there. There's a good chance that the first rolls that you get are not going to be attack, and that's going to be the one that you're going to want to re-roll on. If you're wondering, it's going to be whatever the preliminary base stat is for that piece of gear. Like this ring, for example, is attack, which means I'm going to want to re-roll it into attack. Now, if I go to the earrings, their preliminary base stat is defense, which means I'm going to want to re-roll into defense. And of course, for the rune, the preliminary base stat is HP, so I'm going to want to re-roll into percentage HP. Now, of course, the higher rarity gear is going to take a lot more resources. The lower rarity gear is going to take less resources, but considering you get the same amount of stats percentage-based from the Awakens, it's definitely something you're going to want to be mindful of, and maybe even start awakening low rarity gear to boost up the stats on your characters. So that's a really, really big one, and definitely something that I think a lot of newer players aren't fully aware of how powerful that can actually make your characters be. And the last thing on the list, this is a very important one, going back to that idea of farming SSR gear. So I talked about farming SSR gear and how it's going to be really important to not only gear your characters, but also to save resources and use gems to reroll your gear, which you definitely don't want to do. But it's very important when it comes to gearing up and farming that SSR gear to also make sure that you clear your towns. Now, there's a lot of reasons why you're going to want to clear your towns. You're going to get a bunch of gems and other rewards by doing so. But also, when you do end up getting to 5 stars, what's going to happen is it's going to unlock a quest chain that is repeatable. The steady effort right here that you guys see, this is a series of 5 quests that goes in a chain that has you run a hard free quest 8 times. And not only do you have the chance to get gear normally when you actually run that quest on hard mode, but when you complete it 8 times, you're going to get a bonus piece of SSR guaranteed gear. It's like a pity piece of gear, a bonus, whatever you want to call it. And you need to make sure that you work on your towns so that you can do these quests. Now, this is what you're going to want to do when you are farming the free stages for gear. You're going to want to try to have one of these quests be in progress, because it's really going to make the amount of gear that you're farming much better and much more efficient. Now, of course, if you're going to auto or AFK for a really long time, you're going to probably burn through more than 8 runs in a short period of time. But if you are there and actually playing an active, try to follow along these quest chains for the extra gear that you do get. So anyway, this is 5 tips and mistakes when it comes to introductory gearing to 7 Deadly Sins Grand Cross. I'm going to leave it here for this video. Obviously, a lot of other stuff that I could share, but that's going to be it for today. So I'm hoping that you guys enjoyed this video. And of course, if you guys did enjoy this video and you want more like this in the future, consider subscribing to the channel. Thank you again, everyone. If you want to help out, tossing a quick like means a lot as well. So thank you to all of you guys who do that. And more videos, hopefully, will be coming out in the future. Have a great day, everyone. Take care. And until next time, this is Salt of the Salty Guild, signing out.